Right now, I'm recording this podcast with everything I own. I own a backpack with clothing, basic stuff, and I don't have a fancy setup, just my voice, a dream, and the road ahead. I'm not just homeless, I'm chasing freedom, and I want you to know why. Why I'm homeless and chasing my dream of traveling. This is my first episode. This is my first YouTube channel. First, this channel was going to be so many different things. I've always wanted to start a YouTube channel. It was going to be like way back when I used to make B movies, corny horror movies. This is when I was in my 20s. It's funny. And when YouTube came out, I was like, yeah, I could finally make B movies and post them. Never did it, unfortunately. I had children and I was raising them, and that took all my time. And then I was like, I'm going to make just a silly entertainment movie channel. And that didn't happen either. And then I started following travelers, travel vlogs like Johnny D and uh, many others. I've actually watched a travel show when I was a kid. Ever since I was a child, we're talking like age 5, I've dreamed of living in a different country, fantasizing, longing. I didn't feel like I belonged in the US. Every chance I got to take to talk to someone from a different country, I did. I remember there was this boy in my kindergarten class, or maybe it was first grade. I don't know. I moved a lot, so it's hard to remember. But it was definitely first grade at the very most. His name was Gabor, and he rode a bike, and we were always out in the front yard talking. And then he moved, and I was really sad. But that was my first friend from a different country, and I always thought about him. And then when I was 20, I was doing this U2 the group. I had a big, um, I go to their concerts, and even if I didn't go, I had this thing where I was obsessed with listening to their bootlegs. And a bootleg is basically when a fan goes into the concert and sneaks in a recorder, a tape recorder, and records it and then puts it on a CD. And then the fans would pass it around without charging. And I got involved in this and got pretty well known. And U2 didn't really care as long as no one made any money. But this guy from Hungary found out who I was, and one thing led to another. We had this long distance relationship, and it was perfect. He couldn't wait to talk to me, and I remember buying cards uh, to talk long distance, like a gift card. So long. This was like in 2000. That's the only way I could make an international call. And I remember calling hungry, and I was so excited to. It was just so fun, and he had this rough accent. We got along really well. We talked for 6 months. He decided he had a cousin in. I lived in Sacramento, and he was going to come and meet me, and so he comes and we meet in a mall, and my mom comes with me to be on the safe side, and it was like love at first sight. He was a gorgeous man. He was 10 years older than me. His name was Peter. And he treated me the best in my any man would ever treat me, and I fell in love with him, and we got married. We eloped. We went to Reno and got married. And then I wore his shirt. We didn't even have a ring. It was kind of funny. And then we were married for 3 months, and my parents were LDS, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, and talked me out of my marriage. And unfortunately, I listened. He was a Seventh-day Adventist, so he would worship the Sabbath on a Saturday, and I'd worship the Sabbath on a Sunday, and it got old really fast. And I told him, even though I still loved him, that I'm done. And I believe he was my soulmate. It was the perfect relationship I've ever had. And so, reason I'm telling you this, so that you understand why I'm homeless. It's not just one event, it's a chain of events. After this divorce, I came to Phoenix, and I did my research that this was a high income for the time, and low living. So you make a little bit higher, not as high as California, but a little higher income, and then your living costs are lower, so you could get ahead. Um, so I came here, and then about 2 months later, I met this man, and we got married, and we had a house built, and it was just amazing. But didn't love him like I loved the other man, unfortunately, and pretty quickly regretted marrying him, unfortunately. And that caused some problems because he found out, and he started cheating on me, then verbally abuse, and then we had children together. And after a number of years, 9.5, we decided, after 2 years of marriage counseling, this would never work. He threatened my life, and I told him to leave. And then a month later, he left a note and took the kids, went to the judge and got them taken away from me, and barely let me see my children. He was very abusive, very verbal abusive. During the time that we're married, he wouldn't let me get into the mailbox, and he used my name because he had bad credit, but I didn't. And he used my name to take out $100,000 in credit card debt. And what he did is he spent it on food and strip clubs. And I didn't find out about this until the divorce, when they split this debt in half, and I owed 50,000. And I decided, even though it was fraud. I couldn't do anything because we were married at the time, and so I decided to pay it off instead of doing a bankruptcy, which was a huge mistake. But anyway, this is what happened, and it was all charged off, so I was paying off people that bought the debt, basically how that works, the creditors. And then they told me amount to pay, and I did. And then years go by, I get involved with a man. We start our own business, and the credit was supposed to be dropped off 2017, but it started all over again where I owed 50,000, and they started garnishing me, and I I couldn't do anything about it. And so what happened was, because I didn't pay the full amount, but I thought I was paying the full amount, they were able to charge me interest, and now I owe pretty much the same amount all over again. I feel like it was unfair that I asked for the total, and I thought I paid it off, and unfortunately they lied to me, and I know they did it on purpose so they could get more money, and that's part of why I'm the way I am now. But what happened next was my boyfriend, because we were making $10,000 a month, doing really well with our own business. We were doing the debris removal, and I would do cleaning, and we were getting into painting and pressure washing, and the business was growing, and we were making 10,000 a month. And it was like 3 years of this, and it was amazing. And then one day, his mom wasn't doing too well, and he got some heavy drugs that was free to him, and it was our next door neighbor. And I didn't know he was all jacked up until I could tell we were on the job, and he pulled out a gun and he put it on my forehead. He thought I was cheating on him. He then just started yelling and left the apartment we were cleaning. I chased him down because I was worried about him, and he was running around with a gun. Um, and then he was going to run away, and I called his name, and he came back. And then he hopped in our truck and drove off. And as he drove off, I hopped in the back of the truck. And then he came back. And when I got out of the back of the truck, something told me after he was locking the door that he was going to end himself. And I thought, no, there's no way. And then I was pleading and begging for him to just come out of the truck. And he locked the door. Well, it was already locked. I was trying everything to open, like break the window, because this thought kept persisting that he was going to um, end himself, basically. And so I remember throwing, because we had a computer monitor, um, like those old large TV monitors, and I threw that thinking it would just bust this window of our truck, but it didn't. It just bounced right off, and then I decided to. He told me not to call anyone or he would do it, and but I ended up calling a friend, um, ask what I should do, and he told me just to leave, and I just couldn't leave him. Um, and then he thought I called the cops, my boyfriend that's locked in the truck right now, and yelled at me that he doesn't trust me and that I called the police and he's not going to go to jail again because like years ago he was in jail for whatever. Anyway, and so I told him I didn't call the police. I'm not doing that. And he just kept saying, they're not going to take me and put me in jail. And then it was really quick. He pointed the gun behind his ear with his left hand, and he was right-handed, so no one really understood why he did this with the left hand, but he did anyway. And then he pulled the trigger, basically, and I will never forget the noise. Watching the man I love leave me was gut-wrenching, and he was still alive, and someone watched this all go down. Some witness told me to leave him alone, but and then he also pointed out he looked like he was going to do it again, and since he was still alive, I was still trying to save him. So I got a wrench and put it between my fingers, kind of like this. And for those that are watching my podcast, it's my thumb between my two fingers in the middle. But think of that as a wrench. And then I just went pow, 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 and it cracked this window. And I was able to open the door, and I grabbed the gun out of his hand and I put it on the ground and called the cops. I was detained. I told them the story. I had a witness. Then I went to the hospital and he was on life support so that he can donate his organs, basically. And he passed away that night. So he was like, it was very sad. And he had a daughter who came and saw him. And he left me. And then after that, the landlord, the neighbors that gave him the drugs, I tried to get them in trouble with the law because I was mad that it caused my boyfriend's death. And then they were throwing fireworks at my house and shooting guns at me. And I had children, and I was really worried my kids would be killed, or I probably shouldn't have said that word, but unalived, whatever. So I asked my landlord if I can leave early. I had a month left in my lease, and I told him what happened, and he said, okay. And then, but we had a lot of stuff, and he gave me a month to get, like, we had a lot of stuff. It was like hoarding. It was really bad because we got free stuff. We were keeping it and selling it every weekend, and we'd make extra money that way. But it got so bad that it looked like a hoarder house, and he didn't believe me, I guess. Well, I didn't know this, but he didn't believe that I could get all that stuff out in a month. And I kept tabs with them. I'm like, I got X amount done this week, and I took this amount of trailer loads away, and then it was the very last week of the month, and I was totally done. And I went to go let him know, and he gave me an eviction, and it was illegal eviction because you're supposed to get 30 days, and he gave me 3-day notice. And I went to court to try to prove that and he wouldn't take my last month's rent. He wouldn't take it. So all of this was just like totally bogus. Got scammed again, and then went to court. They had me say my name, and the judge wouldn't even listen to my side at all or look at the proof that I brought. And he won, the landlord. And then he met me at the property and said that he felt bad that he did this, but he wants me to pay him like $1,200, and my rent was like $1,000. But and then he would undo it, but I didn't trust that he would undo it, and so I didn't pay him that because it's bogus. I have to do bankruptcy anyway because of my past. So I decided I'm just not going to please this man. I still don't think he would have undid what he did. It would take time out of his schedule, and he already decided to do this to me. I still don't think he would ever undo it. But I couldn't even get a lawyer involved or anything because he had to undo it, but he wasn't going to undo it at this point. So this was 2016. This is how I became homeless. So then I lived on top of this man's roof. He had a fake, horrible apartment. It had rats, and I didn't know it had black mold, and it had cockroaches. These rats were huge. They were like big as cats and always pregnant. It was gross, and you couldn't catch them. They would somehow fit in a tiny hole and live in the walls, and it was so creepy. And the cockroaches would bite you at night, and there were so many, and I would never eat there. The appliances were filled with cockroaches. It was horrible. I lived there for 6 years. I just couldn't find another place, and I couldn't figure it out. And I didn't want to be homeless, but I was, and my family won't help me. That's a different story. And so I decided one day I got really sick from the black mold, and I decided that the living in my car was better than what I was going through. And I left all my stuff and I moved into my car. Um, and then I got a job at Amazon, and everything seemed to be fine. And then I was working at Amazon for a year. I decided that I was lonely and I would like to date. And so I got on Facebook, the dating section, and went on 4 dates. And then there's this guy from a different country, and he said he was from Turkey, and he lived in Miami. And we talked and we clicked pretty well. And then a month goes by after we met, and we were just talking nonstop that month. He would give me morning texts and say how I was pretty and compliments, and it seemed like my first long distance romance I had in my 20s. And I thought maybe I can have that type of relationship again because I missed out on that. And so we talked for another month. So 2 months goes by, and then he says that he wants me to try Bitcoin investment. And I've always been interested in it, actually. So I was like, okay, well, if someone is doing it, maybe I can learn from them. So he walked me through setting up a Bitcoin wallet, and the site looked legit, and it was through crypto website app. And so I was investing like thousands of dollars. And then it was like November, and my son was going to take all of us to Disneyland, and I invested two more thousand, and then that's where he wanted me to put more in, and I wouldn't, and then he gave me like 30,000, and it really went through my bank account, and I trusted him, and I put the $30,000 he gave me back into this Bitcoin website, and then the money wouldn't come out after that, and I was accused of money laundering, and I believed it, and then I had a fine. If I paid $6,000, then I wouldn't be reported, and I freaked out and believed it, and of course he couldn't help me with the 6,000. So I ended up selling my cab over camper and my truck to my friend for $4,000, and then I got a refund from this. I tried to do bankruptcy, and I got screwed over by a bankruptcy lawyer, and they gave me a lame refund, and it was like 2,000. And so I had $6,000, and I gave it to this website, and then it said I owed another 4,000, but there's no way for me to pay it. And then that's the point where I figured out that it was a romance scam, and I, my ego couldn't take it. I I remember when I first found out this man was fake. It hurt pretty bad. It was a weird feeling of I trusted my intuition, and it was wrong. And my intuition was never wrong my whole life until now. That's how I felt. I don't know how accurate that is, but I'm just explaining my feelings at this time. And my kids didn't trust me and didn't like that I was always talking about this man. I had limerence, and I fantasized about being with him, and I loved him, and I put him on a pedestal, and he wasn't real. And then once I found out he wasn't real, um, I was walking to Walmart, like that one video I put on here, and I decided that because I had PTSD from that other thing, and I decided I'm going to end it basically. And I drowned when I was 18, so I figured, that's a good way of going. And so I was going to go inside of a canal basically the next day. Um, what stopped me was I was on this dating website called Your Travel Mate. I kind of knew that this guy may not be real, and so a month this happened in February, but a month before, so January, I was on this dating site. It was kind of expensive, but uh, I was talking to this really nice guy, and I decided that these people on here are too wealthy, and they're not interested in someone that's houseless and just got scammed. And I betrayed my children and lost everything. And due to my past, I have no hope. My credit shot. I have no hope in purchasing a vehicle, and I can't live anywhere because they do background checks, and now I have an eviction. And so I have bad credit and eviction, and I wasn't getting anything to live in. And then with the 3 times the rent, even I didn't qualify for that. So I tried living in a room, and that lady scammed me. It seemed like everywhere I go, I was just being betrayed and scammed. And I was like, I'm done with this type of life. I'm just done. I'm done trying. I'm just done. And then as I was deleting this website, your travel mate, and planning the next day, I was going to walk to work at night and just not come back, basically, is my plan. I was 100% committed to this plan. And then this man came out of nowhere because I was on this site for a month and searching different profiles, and I never saw this profile before. And he texted me and he's like, hey. And then I didn't respond because this is such a expensive website. Plus, I was determined to cancel my profile and do my plan. It's not a very good plan, but this is what happened. And then he texted me one more text, and he said, "With every touch, you're the fire that ignites my soul," something like that. And I looked at his profile, and I looked at his pictures, and I read his profile, and something weird happened to me. I couldn't stop thinking about him. It wouldn't leave me alone, and that's all I could think about was this man. And I hadn't even talked to him yet. I was just I took his picture and I put it on my phone, and I've never felt anything like this in my whole entire life. I just became uh, obsessed over this man, and I was like, "Oh, great! Now I got limerence again." And I was like, "Well, this guy's probably fake. I'm not going to get scammed again." And I know at this point how to take someone's picture and do a reverse image search and find the person. I verified he was actually who he said he was. And a couple weeks go by. I can't get this man out of my mind. And he keeps texting me and saying, "Hey, why don't you respond? I really want to talk to you." And I finally give in. I just can't take anymore. I have to talk to this man. And everything just clicked. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It was like perfect. Like, our conversations flowed, and time stood still, and it was so amazing. And it seemed like we both felt the same, and we couldn't get enough of each other. He would we would I started giving him morning texts, and he would start to give me morning text, and we just text each other all the time. And he didn't want to do a video chat for some reason, and he had a birthday, and then he was flying in to his country. He lived in Italy, and he was going into Ukraine, and he didn't tell me why. But the more I searched this man up, I found his Facebook account, and I found out he joined the Ukraine army, and he was flying in to uh, be a defender. And my heart sank with worry, and he could read my mind. I didn't even text him. He said, "Don't worry, I'll be okay." And I was like, "Well, that's weird. I was worried, but I didn't text him. How does he know I'm worried?" And it was very strange. And then all of a sudden I could hear his, I never heard his voice, but I could hear his voice in my head. And I thought I was going crazy. And then, I had this obsessed thinking. I couldn't stop thinking about him. We had this beautiful talk. together. The conversation flowed effortlessly. We both felt like time stood still. It was our own little world. It was just perfect. And then all of a sudden in my heart, I was just felt this intense love and unconditional love. It was so intense. It was amazing. I never felt anything like it. And with other weird um, emotions and energy and just going up and down my spine and feeling this tug towards this man I've never met. And then I felt like a heartbeat of him in my chest. And I'll never forget that. That was incredible. And I would tell him my past, and things would just get better. And it was perfect. And then it got to the point where I was like, I really can't afford this site anymore. Can we talk off it? And he's like, sure. And I gave him my phone number. And he's like, well, I can't talk off of it. And he wouldn't give me a reason why. And as soon as I said goodbye to him, this pain of loss and horror, and I don't know, it's really was very painful. My head hurt, and it it was like a spiritual pain. It was like intense, and it was not normal. Like, this is, first of all, we didn't even really date, and then to have this weird breakup where you're just in intense pain, and it's really strange. I never felt anything like this in my whole entire life. And so 3 days goes by, and I can't take it anymore. I'm in this horrible pain, really horrible. It was very painful, hard to explain, like a spiritual, horrible pain. And I decided I'm going to talk to this guy again, and I did, and asked if he missed me, and he's like, no. And I was like so mad, and I would like cry for no reason, and I was in this intense pain. I would cry, and I couldn't sleep, and the feeling of meaningless, and I couldn't, and I was crying, and I was like trying to go to work, and all this is going on. And there was this one day where I woke up crying, I walked to work crying, I was working crying, and I walked home crying. I ate and cried, and I fell asleep and cried. I've never cried that long in my whole entire life. It was crazy. And my mom passed away, and I still never cried like that. And I felt bad, but this is what happened to me. And so I was talking to him again, and I just I told him I think I love him. I've never felt this way before. And then we both felt goosebumps at the same time. It seemed like he could read my mind. I felt like I had more psychic abilities than normal, and this weird energy, and then the obsessive thinking about this man. And so I was like, this is all just too weird. I'm going to Google my symptoms and see what the heck is going on. I just know that this is not normal. It's just not. And I can feel his heartbeat, and it's very strange. Anyway, so Twin Flames pops up, and I was like, what the heck is that? And it sounds like soulmate, only better. And I was like, oh, what's soulmates? And it's better. But why am I in this pain? And why does he not love me? And why does he not want to be with me? Why does he doesn't miss me? And we talk again, and then it got back to being better with us again. We and then we go for another, from, at this point it was March to April. Then I took another break and did the same thing. I was in pain, crying. Break probably didn't last very long, and I went back to talking to him. And then I'm just longing for this man, just longing. And And then I was worried because he's in the army and in this war. And then I found this lady on YouTube. She had a podcast about twin flames, and she had a twin flame, and she she worked with hers, though it wasn't online, and she just did like a little knuckle fist bump, and that's when her obsessed thinking started. So they're just like coworkers, and they did he just like did a little fist bump and started the twin flame thing. That story's funny. And she was already married, and she was all telling me to like keep a journal. Well, in her podcast to everyone that was listening. So I decided to listen to do her idea, and then she would talk about masculine energy and feminine energy, and I was like, okay, so maybe this is like some weird spiritual um, soulmate stuff, and then she was saying how she had a spiritual coach and told his name, Kurt, and so then I looked it up and I found this guy's channel, and after reading a bunch of Reddit groups and this lady, and then watched his channel, I finally figured out, I just know, you just have this knowing that it's your twin flame, and your mind's like, you're crazy, and it's just knowing uh, that you're on this journey, and you feel forced down, I like to call a rabbit hole, Alice in Wonderland, so to speak, and I was just falling. That's what it felt like. So I go from limerence of a fake man to another looking like scam of this scammy app for dating, and to a twin flame intense, what looked like a romance. And the more I read into it, the more I experience it, I realize um, it's just me having another experience, a past life. So we reincarnate, and I just know we reincarnate. I just know. And I'm come from an LDS background, and my beliefs were like, no, 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 I've been LDS my whole life. There's no way we reincarnate. I don't believe in this. And then soon my ego was dying some more, and then I could feel this kundalini. This It was very painful. Felt like it was coming out of the middle of my head, and it went down my spine, and I got a fever. This was like in June, and then I go on and off talking to this man. And at this point, I know that I need to like detach and stop talking to him and focus on the inner being. And so, like the end of June, uh, because he's Ukrainian, I decided to look up rock groups without him really mentioning anything. I didn't get it from him. I found this Okin Elzy group and really fell in love with this group. And I was learning Ukrainian, and I was singing Ukrainian songs, and I did this since March. So as soon as I met this guy, I found a rock group because um, I've always dreamed about being with a foreign man and learning their language. And the fake man, I was learning Turkish by watching a Turkish show and listening to music. So I decided to try to do that with Ukrainian. And um, and then because of the war, Okinelzi had like a 30th anniversary tour that they didn't tour last year because of the war, but this year they're going to do it anyway. And I was like, my heart was telling me, you have to go. And I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Um, And then something just told me, well, if you get the ticket, then everything's going to be fine. You're going to go. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. My mind's like, there's a war going on. And like, that's insane. And I've always wanted to leave my country since I was 20. It's been a desire of mine, but I put it off because of children. And so I always had this dream of living in a different country my whole life. And then all this weird stuff is happening. And then I feel like it's like a vacuum being sucked to this other country, and I have no other choices but to do it. So I get this ticket, but the first round it got sold out, so I didn't get it. So I was like, okay, it's not meant to be. And then they released a week later more tickets, and then I got it and ended up getting 2 tickets by accident. And I thought, well, maybe it means somehow I'll meet my other self, but that didn't happen. But of course, I'm gonna want that because this stupid twin flame crap. Anyway, I get into this program with Kurt, and I don't do it because I'm worried about my other self all the time because he's in war, and I'm going to Ukraine in October, and I go to get my passport. First, I have to get a new driver's license because I thought you had to get the real ID to get the passport. Only now that I'm back, I found out you don't need to do that, but it's too late. I did it anyway. So I got my real ID, and then I got my birth certificate. This is a funny story, actually. When I got my birth certificate, I found out my last name was spelled wrong. So my whole life, my parents taught me to spell my last name wrong. So luckily, I kept my name of my last marriage, and so it didn't cause any problems. But if I changed my name back, it would have spelled wrong, and then it would have been really hard to like get my passport. So luckily, I kept my last name after my marriage because I have children. Anyway, that was kind of a funny story. But anyway, so I expedited my passport, and I got it in 2 weeks. It was really fast, and it was kind of hard to get the passport because I went to the post office and they were remodeling, and so it was closed, but I didn't know until I got there. And I'm houseless. It takes a long time to get somewhere, a couple hours. And then I had to go to Chandler, and that's like an hour, almost an hour drive. It's like 45 minutes one way. And luckily, my friend let me use his truck, and I went there and was able to do it. And then I got my passport in the mail, and the address was half ripped off, and somehow I still got my passport. I slowly booked my Airbnb, and then the last thing I booked was the bus ride from Poland to Kiev. When I submitted my passport, I did have to let the U.S. know that I'm going to Ukraine, and they said I could go. So level 4, do not travel, but I did it anyway. And then the last thing to do was to leave my job. And the reason I didn't quit my job is because you're supposed to have like a job to get into this other country, and I don't have remote income, and I saved $8,000, and so I have no credit card. I can't get a hotel room. I have to do Airbnb. I have the Uber is not working because the app, I didn't download it in time, and so my friend luckily took me to the airport, and then I was able to get into Ukraine. When I went from Phoenix to LAX to um, Copenhagen to Poland, and then on a bus to Kiev. So when I got to Copenhagen to Poland, that's when they started speaking different languages. And I had to go through all these customs, and everything was, the U.S. was more intense than anywhere else. I went through everything and told them my agenda and showed, because you have to have uh, proof of where you're staying. So I have my Airbnb accommodations. You have to have travel insurance. I have war insurance because no one's going to give you travel insurance for Ukraine because they're in war. So I had to buy it from Ukraine directly. I had to have my will done. I had to have my life insurance in case, something happens in Ukraine. It sounds awful, but it's true. And I went for a rock concert in Ukraine. Come on, it's epic. It's I love rock. I don't love the war, but they were having this 30th anniversary, and I just had to go. And it felt like my heart wanted to go. And so I get to Ukraine, and I got there early because everyone was saying that when you cross the border, it's going to take a couple of hours. It took like 30 minutes for me. I was like, seriously. And they didn't even ask me any questions in the crossing the border. They didn't even want to look at any of my documents. I had them already. I dropped my phone. And so I get there too early, and I can't check in to my Airbnb. I tried. They already had someone in that Airbnb. I would have just rented that day out, but I didn't know I was going to get that early. I came like almost a day earlier than I was supposed to. Anyway, so I fell asleep on the park bench. Kind of funny. Good thing I had like anti-theft zippers because it looked like someone was trying to open the zipper. I don't know for sure. I could have just bumped it in my sleep. I don't know for sure. But there was not any. Besides the bombing, I never felt unsafe. Everyone was very polite. Yes, there was homeless people there, but no one. I got hugged by one, but they were all sweet, and so very kind people. Um, the food was amazing, and the concert was amazing, and it was fun to walk everywhere, and I was glad that I can support them in travel. I wanted to volunteer, but unfortunately, I had teeth problems, and I didn't know I couldn't fly back, so it extended my stay for another 6 weeks. And I feel like that's why my intuition was to go to Ukraine, is that it saved my life because um, I couldn't afford dental work here in the US. I was being told it was like 20,000. I had 8 root canals, 4 teeth pulled, and 8 cavities, and um, yeah, fun stuff. And I guess I didn't know it, but uh, my mouth was on its last leg. And so if I hadn't gone to Ukraine, I wouldn't be here. And Ukraine saved my life twice. The defender, and then beautiful Oaking Elsie music, and the dentist who whose office went black many times, and he kept working very hard to fix my mouth. He was very sweet. And the kind Airbnb man who helped me find another place to stay longer and then helped me get home. I almost missed my bus on the way home. Uh, I'll go into more detail on my story, but this is my first podcast, and I just wanted to little background story of why I'm homeless and why I'm chasing this dream to live in different countries every 90 days, because I won't be homeless. I can afford to live over there. I spent $1,000 a month for 3 months in Ukraine. Well, I was almost there for 3 months, so 70 days. So like it was like $600 for rent, and then I had bought food and restaurants. I didn't pay for any taxi except for the end of my trip. Um, so the most expensive stuff was the dental work, but every root canal was like $40 and well, no, 60, sorry. And then root canal was 40, and then I had a teeth cleaning, and I don't know the total on that. I would say about 2,000. But that's a lot cheaper than 20,000. So between my hotel and the food and everything came to $4,000. Plus, that's including airfare. And I was there for 70 days. So I could I wouldn't go back to Ukraine. I want to, but, it's not safe. So I wanted to go to Turkey or other places that are inexpensive. Sorry, I had it. And I need to go to bed. I have a super lame job, and I'm hoping to get this channel going and inspire people and just record my journey of me leaving my friend's backyard to live abroad and just go to different countries every 90 days. Anyway, I hope this inspires you, and you enjoy and listen to my story. And if this episode hits home for you, leave a comment. I would love to hear your story. And if you like to subscribe, sorry, I have this itch. If you like to subscribe for more real, raw content, then go ahead, and I'll have some updates. And it might be crazy. It might, I don't know what's going to happen. But you'll be with me. I'll take you with me, and you'll see me start online businesses. I'm going to try YouTube automation right now, and then this channel documenting my journey. And one day it'll be a travel vlog, hopefully, like I always wanted to. Anyway, you have a good night wherever you are in the world. And if you want to be a solo travel, go do it. If you want to start a travel vlog, do it. If you want to start any YouTube channel, do it. I've learned so much. I let fear stop me, and it was so stupid. I didn't fear going to Ukraine, but I was fearful of starting this channel, and I'm finally doing it. And I'll never let fear stop me again. And I may have some trouble talking due to my spiritual awakening, but it's maybe that will inspire you to go within. I don't know. I think your soul picks stuff for you, and I wasn't really supposed to talk about it, but it's part of my journey. It's part of why I'm homeless, and it's part of why I went to Ukraine, and I just wanted to include it. And you have a good night, and don't forget to dream out loud.